Welcome to Stay Rose Crypto. Today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and let's get started. What is Bitcoin? The Bitcoin that we're talking about is a protocol, a network, a distributed ledger, a currency. These four things make Bitcoin what it is today and what make all cryptocurrency so important to the future. Ultimately, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies can serve as a store of value or money. What makes money so good? Well, obviously we all know money is the thing that can buy things, but Stanley Jevons described it as money is a matter of functions for a medium, a measure, a standard, a store. Medium meaning something that people actually use for trade. In some cases, a sense in opposition to its function as a store of value. Standard refers not quite to the protocol, but to the function as a unit of account. How do you enumerate credit and debt? It's a value that we must need to value money and count it as something. So what should you use money for? Now, there's a number of interesting things that have been used before, but they've all had flaws. Precious metals are still common today as an asset, such as gold, silver, and others. However, they are not easily transferred, as bringing precious metals in your pockets everywhere you go can be quite heavy and very dangerous. Gray stones have also been used as money. They can be used money without hiding. And M-Pesa have been used cell phone minutes as money as well, and paper fiat is the money we all know today. Unfortunately, many digital currencies have tried, but they failed. So that's what brings us to Bitcoin. How do we digitize money? Data wants to be free and copy itself, but money should not do this. Digital money involves data, so this is really a futuristic kind of view we're looking at. If I can copy my money, I can double spend it. This makes the money supply expand so that each account loses value. This is called inflation. This is the opposite of what we want. So we need something that controls the amount of money in the circulation while still digitizing it. The one way to solve this problem is with a distributed global ledger similar to the ledger which a bank uses, except shared so that everyone can see it. This is called a decentralized network, or in other words, the blockchain. The problem of distributed consensus is described in CS literature as the Byzantine general problem. The inherent problem of the Byzantine general problem is that the trust is required. You must trust that there's value in the money you're purchasing. You must also trust that the current pull credit debit system. So how does the blockchain work with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies built on the blockchain? The first block, handcrafted by Satoshi Nakamoto, is based in testnet development, including information referencing the bank bailouts in the European Union in 2008. The Times, in January 2009, the chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks, is written in this white paper. 50 Bitcoin was sent to Satoshi Nakamoto with the key listed there. Now, in each block, this is the technology behind it. Each block contains transactions and their hashes, and it takes the fees associated. You might call these mining fees. These are what people mine and get in return for creating the blockchain. A block reward is directed to the winning miner along with fees. So the miner who successfully completes the block is awarded the fees or the transaction fees. It's also a number, timestamp, and other info. After the first block, another block is added. After so many blocks are added to the chain, the block rewards start to divide by 2. The initial block reward of 50 becomes 25, then 12.5, then 6.25, and so forth. At some point, the average transaction fee from a block will be greater than the reward for the block itself, and this is when people stop mining. The blockchain is the ledger, and there are lots of copies. If an address has some unspent inputs, these inputs may be used to create a new transaction, which sends coins to a future address. And you can keep doing this on and on and on until you don't have cryptocurrency left. You don't have to include a transaction fee, but otherwise, miners will not process the block, and thus your transaction fee and your cryptocurrency may be left in oblivion. We need to explain how address works, as these unspent inputs reside. The addresses are a series of characters as a public address. It's like a mailbox. You can send mail to any mailbox in the world yourself. But how are public addresses and private addresses related to each other? The private key leads to the public key, and the hash of the public key leads to the public address. Now, it is through this encryption, this hash, that the private key is kept private and not exposed. Otherwise, people could take control of your cryptocurrency and spend it themselves. Public addresses are also called Bitcoin addresses in the case of Bitcoin transactions. Transactions can only be performed if the private key is available for computation. In practical terms, it means that securing your private key is everything. You don't want it to get in the wrong hands or they will control your money. Consider the private key just as cash, just as fiat currency, because it's just as important. Cold storage refers to the moving of one or more private keys to a physical formation which is not attached to any network. So we have seen a lot of trends with cryptocurrency, especially in 2018. The first is the hashing power of the Bitcoin network now exceeds the world's fastest 500 supercomputers combined. This represents a huge event as cryptocurrency is becoming more and more popular and vast. Now, the question is, could a government compete with this? Maybe, but it wouldn't be easy. This creates the problem of regulation. When and if will government regulate cryptocurrency, and more specifically, blockchain Bitcoin? If when people say, but what backs the value of Bitcoin? One sure answer is the network and the hardware and the power of the infrastructure built to support each node in it. Now, inherently, this may not have a certain amount of value, but it is the trust that we discussed earlier that places so much value. Here in this image, you can see Bitcoin addresses in a representation, in a graph representation. Now you can see how the Bitcoin number of Bitcoin addresses is growing vastly as each year goes on. Here you can also see a 3-year projection of Bitcoin, estimating that in later in 3 years it will reach 127,000. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Stay With Crypto. I know it was a bit fast, but I hope you stay around and subscribe. Have a great rest of your year and happy investing.